Washington's largest companies will pay more than $2 million to settle a lawsuit over hiring practices. nCino is accused of working with two other companies to avoid hiring each other's workers. WECT's Zach Solon read over the settlement agreement and has those details for us tonight. So, Zach, this lawsuit first filed by a group of workers, and it's like more than 2 years old.
Yeah, that's right, John. And the legal process will come to an end after settlements from those two other companies, Live Oak and Aperture, and a federal investigation. The class action suit was filed in March of 2021 by employees that say the three companies had an illegal, quote, gentleman's agreement not to hire each other's employees to reduce pay and competition. According to court documents, a federal investigation was opened into hiring practices at the three financial tech companies, but Live Oak and Aperture agreed to similar settlements before the investigation ended. Documents show that investigation was closed and no actions or penalties were taken against nCino. The $2.19 million settlement will be distributed among employees who worked for the three Port City-based companies between January 2017 and when the lawsuit was filed in March of 2021. As part of the settlement agreement, nCino has also agreed to avoid entering into any agreements with companies that violate antitrust laws. And John, court documents also show that nCino denies any wrongdoing in regards to its hiring practices, but agreed to settle this lawsuit to focus on its business, employees, and customers. Any
comments from higher ups at nCino today about this settlement?
We did reach out today, but as of right now, John, we haven't heard back.
Nothing yet. All right, Zach, thanks.